Hi there, I'm the Brewmaster. Welcome to the Blind Eternities Tavern. Whenever new cards come out or new mechanics or interactions, it inspires me to start brewing, building new decks, trying out new interactions, finding ways to make that tick. Looking at what I have in front of me here, I think you can probably guess what I'm going to talk about today. Because as of this video, SpongeBob is in Magic the Gathering. And I think it's time we talk about how Universes Beyond impacts the way that we approach deck building and the way that we approach Magic in general. So if you have thoughts and opinions, pull up a chair, have a seat at the table, and whether you're a button mash hack and slash controller bash or a meeple moving mastermind of maps, mats, and minis, if you ruffle at the awful riffle shuffle scuffle, or if you're a click clack pick attack number ball luck sack, we're all here for the same reason. I'm Jake. Let's talk games. Anytime we talk about Universes Beyond, it's easy to get the impression that a large portion of Magic's community dislikes Universes Beyond in general. While I think there are some people within the Magic community that dislike Universes Beyond in all its forms, I think more typically different people have different complaints about these products. And they don't always overlap entirely. So I want to separate that a little bit and tackle Universes Beyond in a few different ways, because there's been a number of different products that have been released in very different styles, and it's going to keep changing moving forward, now that we start seeing Universes Beyond being released into Standard. So let's start by talking about the people that dislike Universes Beyond for the mechanics. They don't like the way that these cards mechanically fit into the rest of Magic the Gathering. So let's talk about the mechanics of Universes Beyond. Every Universes Beyond product, like every Magic set, introduces a few new rules to the game. Sometimes that's the time travel mechanic in Doctor Who, and sometimes that's radiation counters, like we saw in Fallout. There's always a little bit here and there. Amass Orcs is very similar to Amass Zombies, but if you mix the two, you got a couple towering totems that you can build up as the game progresses. I think when you introduce those new mechanics, it can create a level of complexity in the game that can be frustrating for longtime Magic players. Now obviously, every Magic set that comes out has its own new mechanics, its own level of complexity that it introduces, and its own themes tied to that specific plane. But Universes Beyond just adds to that. It's not bad in and of itself, but when you stack it on top of everything else, it can become a little too much. But I think the mechanics complaint might come from a different place. That mechanics complaint is usually tied to the mechanically unique cards. The complexity can be a problem, but what I think is a bigger problem is if you want to play Grixis Demons, you might struggle to find a better commander than Be'lakor. And the problem is, that ties you into playing a Warhammer 40k commander for an ostensibly Magic the Gathering game. There is no real substitute or reprint for it. Obviously with the non-legendary cards, depending on the agreement they have with Games Workshop, they should be able to print those cards again. But even with that, cards like Blood for the Blood God can't exactly be transposed into any existing Magic franchise. So some of these mechanics, some of these tools that we have at our disposal in Magic the Gathering are locked to specific Universes Beyond products. I remember when Universes Beyond was first coming out and they promised that they would remake a lot of these cards, printing them as Universes Within, that we wouldn't see those mechanically unique cards trapped in Universes Beyond product. But at this point, we've seen so many of them printed, so many unique mechanics and styles that I don't know if it makes sense to try to bring that to Universes Within. I'd love to see a Mystery Booster 2 style set with thousands of cards in it, and just have Universes Within versions of every Universes Beyond card that's been printed. Each unique card either nicknamed or reprinted with different style to fit inside the universe of Magic the Gathering. But realistically, I don't think that's going to happen. So for the time being, if you want access to those mechanics like the Lost and the Damned. You're going to be trapped using Warhammer 40k. And similarly, if you want to use Orcish Bowmasters, or if you want to use the One Ring, you're always going to have a little bit of Lord of the Rings in your deck. And that brings me to my second group of people. The people that dislike Universes Beyond for the style. They don't think it fits with Magic the Gathering. So let's talk about the style of Magic the Gathering. Universes Beyond introduces some elements to the cards that are very different from the planes that we've been on in Magic the Gathering. We haven't seen, until recently, a lot of vehicles in Magic. So seeing a car or a plane or something from our world is kind of jarring. Seeing some of the mechanical devices and the ways that they've introduced characters wearing blue jeans and a plaid shirt are just a little odd. But I think we need to understand that Magic hasn't always been super cohesive. And just because a modern Magic set has a very defined style guide doesn't mean that's always been the case. And it also doesn't mean that running a modern Magic card next to an older Magic card isn't going to cause the same sort of style disparity that running a Universes Beyond card with a modern Magic card. In fact, a lot of those Universes Beyond cards stylistically are more similar to Magic cards than they are to old Magic cards. So when we complain about the style, I think it has more to do with the content of the art. Having a barbed wire wrapped baseball bat in the world of Sword of Fire and Ice doesn't always make a lot of sense. But I do understand wanting to have that cohesion in your deck, having everything kind of look like it's from the same universe. And I think that's where we get to the third group of people. The people that, mechanics aside, style aside, they don't like that this is from existing intellectual properties. It's easy enough to take something from outside of Magic, something like Arabian Nights, and bring it into the lore of Magic, call it its own plane, shift it a little bit, have some steampunk planes, or some futuristic planes, or spacefaring planes, and just do that with a Magic twist. You don't have to bring in a whole other franchise. So let's talk about other IPs in Magic. And here is where we get to SpongeBob. So we've talked about mechanics, and we've talked about style. Now I think it's time to talk about these Universes Beyond products as external IPs. These exist outside of Magic the Gathering. They have their own games or shows or movies, and bringing them in doesn't always fit. Something I thought was really interesting about the Warhammer 40k decks is realistically, you could explain this in universe. There are ways that you can breach different universes together. That's kind of the basis for most of Warhammer 40k. It's easy to believe that there is some multiversal connection between the 40k universe and Magic the Gathering, and some of these things seeped through, and we have this overlay type situation. With Doctor Who, we could easily see a TARDIS moving through time and space, slipping into another dimension. It's happened before. I think a lot of these things reasonably tie together, and they could have integrated that into the story. They chose not to because other franchises like Evil Dead or Walking Dead or probably some other kind of dead don't really have a good excuse to be in Magic the Gathering. Now obviously the new SpongeBob set coming in, there's an easy explanation for how they came to Magic the Gathering. They rode David Hasselhoff. And I gotta say, if David Hasselhoff is not a vehicle as the secret card in the new Secret Lairs set, I'm gonna be a little bit disappointed. But that aside, I really like the way they did the SpongeBob set. I like the way they handled the characters. I think this is the best way to do some of these weirder Universes Beyond products. One of my frustrations with Doctor Who is we have actual actors on cards. And if you want the mechanics of those cards, you have to use the art of those actors. And that just feels a little weird to me. I understand why they did it that way. And I think for a commander deck, there's so many new cards that you want to make and new art styles. You can't just nickname everything and make it all reprints, although it would be really cool to do it that way. But for something like a Secret Lair, I like that they do the nicknames. I don't like mechanically unique cards. I think that's probably my biggest friction with Universes Beyond. But SpongeBob didn't do anything like that. Those are all reprints. They're all existing cards, and they all kind of tie to the flavor of the characters. Like SpongeBob, as Joda the Unifier, is awesome. Not because SpongeBob is necessarily this unifying force that brings people in from all over the place to build this unstoppable army to fight back against Phyrexia or whatever, but because that's how he would build a deck. SpongeBob, if he played Magic, would get as many cool legendary cards as possible and jam them into a single deck. I think that's fun. The other cards, my only frustration is that Mr. Krabs doesn't have anything to do with treasure tokens. That really feels like a missed opportunity. And if we look at some of the other Secret Lairs that have come out with that sort of Universes Beyond flavor, I think you can see the lessons learned over time. Princess Bride, where everything was nicknamed, I guess Evil Dead came out before that, and the lesson learned was that it's cool to have legendary creatures so you can use them as your commander. Then we saw Princess Bride come out with more legendary creatures, but there's a little bit of a lack of cohesion with the way those creatures overlap, so if you want to run all of them in one deck, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then they came out with the Monty Python and the Holy Grail cards, which didn't have legendary creatures in it, so they only fit as kind of ancillary cards, again with that lack of overlap. Then the Slimer Secret Lair came out, and you actually had Slimer as the Mimeoplasm in a Secret Lair with other cards that fit into that deck. I think it was an excellent choice and an excellent start to building that Mimeoplasm deck. Now, with the SpongeBob Secret Lair, well, it's kind of an odd assortment of cards. It seems like they lean really hard into the meme aspect of it, but let's be honest, the people that want to buy the SpongeBob Secret Lair are also the people that want to use the meme cards. And just because this is a official Wizards of the Coast product, there's so many meme proxies floating out there and so many weird builds of decks that intentionally use cards that kind of are a meme in and of themselves. I was looking through some old cards and I found some Glasses of Urza and Sunglasses of Urza. Like, obviously, this is an in-universe joke. They've done this before with weird stuff. And then in the, I think it was just Unglued set, you had the contact lenses of Urza. Magic has always been kind of this weird assortment of interplanar interactions between characters and styles and mechanics. It's built into the game. So now, let's talk about moving forward, how we handle Universes Beyond, and what this SpongeBob card, this SpongeBob release, makes me want to build. So now, how do we build the ultimate SpongeBob deck? My first reaction to seeing this Secret Lair was a bit of frustration, because SpongeBob doesn't strike me as Joda the Unifier. SpongeBob feels like it should be more of a food-based commander, maybe one of the chef or caterer cards. There's a few of them out there. I think that would be kind of interesting, and it would be very thematic. But then it got me thinking that that's not what SpongeBob is about. SpongeBob is about bringing people together. SpongeBob is about an odd assortment of cards that cause wacky interactions. SpongeBob is about annoying everybody, all around him. So we want to build our SpongeBob deck with that in mind. And we want to use our SpongeBob deck to build a board state that makes your opponent hate Universes Beyond just that much more. And the way we're going to do that is use exclusively Universes Beyond Legends. Well, except one. Obviously, we need something that ties this back to Magic the Gathering, how we got here, how we got this odd assortment of legends. And that's easy. We're going to run Fibblethip the Lost as our only in-universe legend. And every single one of our Universes Beyond legends is going to be mana cost 3 or higher, so we're guaranteed to flip into it eventually. The game plan is that we get Joda in play, SpongeBob, in play, and then we cast any of our 3 mana cost legends. Flip into Fibblethip the Lost, draw extra cards, so we're refueling while we're casting cards out of our hand, building a board state of stronger and stronger legends, and then we run an assortment of cards that can target Fibblethip to do that all over again. Our goal is to fuel out as many Universes Beyond cards as possible. We run a ton of ramp, and fortunately, because of Lord of the Rings and a few other sets, we have access to some pretty good ramp both in artifacts and land search that's all in that Universes Beyond frame. For our lands, we want to make sure that we are as mismatched as possible, running one of each Universes Beyond basic that we can grab with a selection of other multicolor type cards that came out in various Commander product. It's not the strongest mana base, but it does pretty well at getting to 5 mana with the different artifacts like Chromatic Lantern and some of the talismans. Technically has both. And when it comes to closing out the game, our plan is just to kind of walk through our opponents with a massive army of massive legends. I've built a Joda deck before, and I think it has a similar problem to Sliver decks, where once you get rolling, your opponents can't stop you. And if your opponents stop you, you never really get rolling. So if you build the deck strong enough to survive, it feels extremely unfair. I'm hoping with the handicaps placed on SpongeBob and the general aesthetic of Universes Beyond only, it can walk a fine line between being fairly powerful without really having a oppressive game plan. But we'll see. I have a build of it linked below, and I think there's definitely some improvements that can be made, but our goal isn't really to make a crazy powerful deck. Our goal is to make something goofy. Make something befitting of SpongeBob. So let me know what you think. Let me know how you would build some of these commanders, and I'm really curious to see people's reactions to Universes Beyond in general. As we start moving into more Universes Beyond products, legal in standard, being released as Secret Lairs, Magic feels more and more like a Smash Brothers style game than a Street Fighter style game. And while that does bring new people in, I do recognize that this is pushing some people out. Personally, I love it. You've seen a couple of my proxy decks. I have a Adventure Time themed deck where everything is redone with images from the show. I have a Batman deck where every card in the deck uses art from the Long Halloween. I think it's cool to bring other franchises into Magic because you can create a really tight theme and tell a really good story on the table. And that's my plan with this SpongeBob deck. I'm looking forward to it. It's been nice talking to you.